Welcome back to the Movie Review Roundup. I have seen some more movies, and yeah, you know the drill. Mad God is a film 30 years in the making. It's the dream project of visual effects artist Phil Tippett, and from the scale alone, it's an impressive feat from everyone involved, but without a discernible plot or narrative structure, it feels not much more than a demo reel. Phil's ability to craft a world and bring it to life is beyond skillful. The entire world exists as a careful blending between stop motion and live action, and it's seamless with the transitions between the two mediums. The entire film looks like some disgusting amalgamation of the works of David Cronenberg, H.R. Geiger, and the weirdest Nine Inch Nails videos, which is a compliment, by the way. The design of the film's inhabitants are nightmarish and grotesque, and even the few humans that exist aren't traditionally normal, and everything behaves in a very disturbing manner. Phil Tippett has managed to craft an incredibly unique world where only entropy seems to govern, and from a visual standpoint, it's beyond impressive. Though, as I previously mentioned, the lack of a narrative holds it back quite a bit. The first character we're introduced to, only known as the Assassin, isn't seen again after the 20-minute mark, and from there on out, it just switches the characters that the film follows, and each are equally unimportant to, I guess, whatever is happening. Simply put, Mad God makes very little sense. Now, there's a moment near the end of the film where a new world is created from what appears to be magic crystals, and in the seconds that it passes, it shows the world going from the Stone Age to modernity, and then it's demolished by war and violence, which feels fitting, as the few things that do exist from the ruins of the previous civilization seems to be nothing but weapons. In the broad scheme of things, it seems that Phil Tippett is trying to portray humanity as a vain and violent species doomed to perpetuate a cycle of violence. The subtext of Mad God being humanity is unable to achieve peace due to its own selfish, rapacious, and violent tendencies, something that I can agree with to an extent, but this isn't an entirely new idea. Films have been doing this motif since the 1950s. It's portrayed interestingly enough here, but it isn't something I'm unfamiliar with. The lack of dialogue isn't a problem per se. Films like Le Triplet de Belleville was done entirely without the human lexicon, but it's able to get its ideas and plot along because its audience is able to understand the characters and their motivations, something that Mad God failed to do for me, and I wouldn't be surprised if this film was wildly discussed or theorized about once a wider audience finds it, but for now it didn't make too much sense to me. In the end, I found it to be visually arresting, ambitiously weird, and it has a great soundscape and sound score as well. However, it is not without its flaws. Since his directorial debut, Robert Eggers has been a talent that I have been keeping my eye on. I was really impressed by his skills behind the camera with The Witch, and his follow-up, The Lighthouse, was one of my top 10 of 2019, and he quickly became one of my favorite working directors in the industry right now. His writing, eye for cinematography, and his attempts to maintain historical accuracy in his work is commendable. The man is a talented individual, and to say I was excited as hell for The Northman was an understatement. And after finally seeing it, I can say with certainty that it was really well made, but it wasn't my favorite outing from him, unfortunately. And while watching it, I was making comparisons between this and David Lowery's The Green Knight, another film that I was excited to see, but much like the former, it didn't really give me what I wanted out of it. And I think that was my own fault for letting the hype get to me. Eggers has stepped up his camera work considerably for the project. There's some wonderful cinematography that showcases some gorgeous landscapes of Iceland, and there's a really impressive shot early on with the camera moving from the bank of a river onto a passing boat and then through the boat. And I'm not saying this is thanks to a larger budget, but I'd suspect that it helped him experiment a little more. Unfortunately, but not surprising, The Northman isn't doing amazing at the box office, and from what Eggers has said regarding studio interference, he'll most likely head back to doing smaller budget films in the future, which is what I'm in favor and support of. Now, not to say that his work with The Northman wasn't worth its efforts, I just personally believe he's more suited to smaller scale art house projects instead of massive epics. But with all that said, I'll continue to look forward to his projects. Just The Northman did not give me what I expected. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, the only reason I watched Morbius was because my friend wanted to see it, and she knew it was gonna be hot garbage, and I don't give a shit about Marvel or DC, so there's that. Jared Leto is easily one of my least favorite actors and people on this planet. The length of method acting he goes to makes working with him such an incredibly daunting and embarrassing endeavor for anyone involved. Yeah, I was so in character, I had people carry me to the bathroom because Morbius uses crutches, and I became such a problem they ended up giving me a wheelchair wheelchair to help me ambulate. That's not acting. That's a spoiled child behaving badly until their parents reach the end of the rope and give them what they want. God, you're such an asshole. How the hell is anyone still wanting to work with you at this point? Your Requiem for a Dream days are long gone, dude. They're gone, fucking behind you. You've done almost nothing of repute since then, and when you're discussed in public conversation, your name causes involuntary rolling of the eyes. And Daniel Espinosa, you're the director. Tighten that belt and stop that shit before it starts. What the hell is wrong with you? I know you've not directed anything of mild praise, but give your fucking balls a tug and rein in your actors. You think John Ford would have allowed that kind of behavior? John Ford punched Henry Fonda in the face after he made comments about the script for Mr. Roberts on day one. Take a page from his book. I can't even imagine having to deal with shit like this. The absolute audacity that Jared Leto believes he has the right to behave like this, like he's earned the right to be difficult to work with. The great irony is that the movie was so mediocre that he became this weapons-grade asshole for such a forgettable performance. And what was gained other than my ire, Jared? Oh lord, I've forgotten to review the movie. It doesn't break new ground or reinvent the wheel, but it isn't as terrible as I had anticipated. Morbius is not without its flaws, but after watching it, I feel like it's undeservedly piled on. And while I was watching this with my friend, we agreed that if this had been released between 2003 and 2008 with Daredevil, Elektra, and Ghost Rider, Morbius would have fit perfectly fine, but this doesn't feel like a 2022 movie. They overshot the release window by almost 2 decades. I think Morbius's biggest problem is that there doesn't seem to be anything at stake for the film, no legitimate conflict for the audience to be concerned about. The villain only seems to be interested in dicking around with Morbius, and he has no plans to infect the city or humanity with vampirism. There's no scheme to set off a bomb in a school. It's just one of those, I'm a better vampire because I've embraced the vampirism. It's bland and it's boring. It's literally from Vampire's Assistant with John C. Reilly, that asshole friend of his that becomes a vampire and just becomes evil because, you know, it went to his head. That's it. That's what happens. It doesn't feel like anyone in this film was actually trying. Everything looks like it's on autopilot, and the entire film is just a way to introduce Morbius to the expanded MCU, which just bores me to tears. He's an ugly character, and now I'm worried about all those unsold Funko Popperinos collecting dust on the shelves of the Conspiracy Comics and EB Games. I can see why people would have enjoyed this. It's goofy, dumb fun, but don't go in expecting the Citizen Kane of Marvel movies.